Welcome back to Patrick Christie's Tonight. Coming up, tonight's panel will take you through the very first of tomorrow's front pages. But first, Muslims have won the vicious power struggle between British prison gangs, according to the hero of the London Bridge terror attack. Now, convicted murderer Steve Gallant bravely fought off terrorist Usman Khan after he launched his attack back in 2019, and he's now warning that violent Muslim gangs have taken over British prisons. Speaking about his own recent experience in prison, Gallant told The Telegraph, as the Islamists started to grow in number and in strength, the balance of power changed. People who probably wouldn't have ever even thought about converting to Islam began to do so because they thought their chances were better off on their side. It's convert or get hurt stuff, isn't it? And this was backed up by former government advisor Colin Bloom on this show just last month.
Islamist gangs, if you want to put it like that, Muslim majority gangs, where evidence was given to me in my review, where Qurans were put on the bed of incoming inmates with the very clear indication, convert or get hurt.
I'm delighted to welcome the first of two guests I've got on this tonight. It's retired prison governor Vanessa Frake-Harris. Vanessa, thank you very, very much. Would you mind just explaining what your experiences in the prison system were? Are we seeing an increase in people converting to Islam, for example? What's going on?
Good evening, Patrick. Thanks for having me on, as usual. But, this isn't a new thing. It has been going on for quite a while. And that's probably because of the number of Muslims that are coming into custody. And there is quite a high proportion of Muslim prisoners. Now, there is strong evidence to suggest that prisoners do convert to Islam as a response to controls of power and space in a jail, particularly in the high security estate, because security and safety is at a premium when you've got some very dangerous criminals in the likes of Franklin, Whitemore and Belmarsh. So I think when you've got large numbers of male prisoners entering into custody, searching for a meaning and a certain belonging, that gangs enable this sort of thing, and it does go on. Yeah, absolutely.
And would you say that then the Muslim or hardline Muslim gangs are now the dominant gangs in prison, and should that be a concern for society?
I think it usually mirrors society at prison. So if there's in a sort of like an inner city jail, like in London or Birmingham, yes, that it would be prevalent. That it probably is. The majority are Muslim gangs, and that's just natural. But I think, unfortunately, frontline staff to deal with this lack a religious competence. They lack leadership support and an authority to spot and challenge behaviour and control issues like this, with obviously a fear of racism following them around. And that is a worry, and I think we should be concerned at that.
Look, Vanessa, can I just say a massive thank you for coming on and just really shining a light on exactly what is going on inside there. It's great to have had your kind of lived experience of that, really, and I do hope to talk to you again very, very soon. As former prison governor Vanessa Frake-Harris. I'm going to get the view now of Executive Director of the Henry Jackson Society, Dr. Alan Mendoza. Alan, look, thank you very, very much. I suppose the wider question here for society as a whole is whether or not prisons are now being treated as jihadi training grounds.
Well, yes, because, of course, the problem isn't simply a prison problem. The problem of conversions and of, jihadism running rife in prisons could emerge at the other end when prisoners are released and go back into society and take their beliefs with them. And that's a big question. Does that radicalisation in prison then carry through to civilian life? And if it does, then we indeed have caused a lot of problems by allowing prisons to become these centres. Yeah, indeed. And this is, we see all too often, is very, very hard to police against, mainly because it becomes incredibly difficult to tell when someone has actually been de-radicalised, as we've seen with things like the Fishmongers Hall attack, for example. Yes, I mean, the biggest problem there was, of course, that, Usman Khan was able to persuade people he had been de-radicalised when, of course, he hadn't. He was just waiting for one opportunity in order to strike. That's a classic example of why you have to be very careful with the prison environment, why you have to make sure that radicalisation is not occurring. And should it occur, you've got to make absolutely certain that people who are coming out have been de-radicalised. And if not, that you're fully aware of who they are and that you can monitor them accordingly.
Now, what Vanessa Frake was saying there was that prison staff don't always lack the correct guidance on how to deal with this. There's a fear of being called racist. There's perhaps as well just a lack of knowledge or willpower in order to be able to deal with it, and that the problem is somewhat overwhelming. I just wonder, why do you think that there is, according to her anyway, a disproportionate number of hardline Muslims in prisons and dare I say it, in wider society as well?
Well, the Muslim prison population is about 3 times as a proportion the size of the Muslim proportion in society. So clearly something's going on there in terms of prisoners and the prison population. I think the danger is that at the top end, you've got some very dangerous people who've obviously been in jail for terrorism offences, and they're radicalised hardcore. Some of them will have been there because their bombs didn't blow themselves to oblivion, basically. So when you have people like that, as it were, being the gang leaders, being the people who are the alphas in prison, obviously that's a very dangerous sort of place to be, and it can cascade down. I know, for example, Steve Gallant speaks of there's a tail effect on this from category A prisons even into category B prisons just because of the numbers that are happening here. So something's going badly wrong here, and it needs to be addressed and looked at to make sure that this does not propagate further.
Alan, thank you very, very much. Tremendous to have you on the show, and I'll see you very soon.